Welcome to Round 1, the show where we play just the beginning of a game to show you what it's like. On today's episode, we visit the courtroom in Lawyer Up from Rock Manor Games. This game pits two players against each other on either side of a criminal case. One player is the prosecution, and the other is the defense. Each side will plan their strategy and go through the discovery process, where they'll build their cases and bury vital evidence that might help the other side. Then they'll examine witnesses, trying to win them over and sway the members of the jury. You'll see every move we make, and then judge for yourself as we discuss the full game after our closing statements. Today's case is a murder case, so pay close attention. Welcome to the table. Today we are going to play 1 versus 1 in a game of Lawyer Up. This is from Rock Manor Games, and this is an interesting courtroom sort of drama game where two players are going to play the defense, that's Ryan today, and the prosecution, which is I'm going to play. And there's a number of cases, but we're playing case number 1. And I want to explain a little bit about how the game works, but you'll see how it plays as we play it out. We've got it set up a little ways into the setup already. We've both chosen one of our strategies. Each player is going to get 3 strategy cards at the beginning of the game, and you're going to pick one. This is going to do a couple different things. You're going to list the witnesses that you're going to pull from the witness deck, and you're going to get 2 icons because those are going to come into play during closing arguments in terms of potentially swaying the jurors in your favor. So I picked, my strategy is law and order.
Oh.
What is your strategy?
Well, mine is illicit affairs.
Illicit affairs? Yours is much more salacious than mine.
I think there was some stuff going on behind the scenes that we're going to expose during this case.
All right. With our strategies picked, the next thing we're going to do is put the witnesses out. Each of these strategies have witnesses. Mine has 5, Ryan's has 4. We put those out already. We've got the judge here in the middle, and the judge is going to start favoring the prosecution. You'll see how that plays in a moment. And then, who's that over there, Ryan?
Yeah, so I have a special witness as the defendant, which is the defendant, and this is Jessica. She is being charged for murder.
Yeah.
So she is a special
She's going down,
witness.
too.
Well, we'll see. A special witness that only I can call to the stand, basically. So this is just for me, which means I'm always going to get her defensive bonus, and you'll see how that works during the game.
Yeah, and I get a card as well, but mine is going to be a card that goes into my hand. It's an evidence card, and it is, and I don't want Ryan to know this, but he should as he's playing, the bloody knife.
I mean, all evidence should be submitted for discovery anyway. So.
This is true. This is true. The bloody knife is a very powerful card that you can play into the examination once we're sort of playing the witnesses, if you will. The bloody knife has some interesting powers that I'm going to actually save for later so that Ryan is a little bit surprised. So that's going to go into my starting hand along with my 5 cards.
Listen, it wasn't even her knife, okay?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Each player is also going to start with their own deck. I have a prosecution deck. This is 26 cards. He has a defense deck, the same 26 cards. The cards are different from one another. They're all going to have powers up in the upper left-hand corner. These are the primary influence powers. So you're going to see the influence stack up on either side of a witness because we're kind of playing a bit of a tug of war over each witness. The other thing you're going to see at the bottom of a lot of these cards is potential examination power, which is resolved the moment the card is played, and then a potential victory or defeat condition, and that's only resolved if it's the final card that you've played in the examination.
In addition, we have our 12 pre-selected jurors, and you're going to notice that these jurors are arranged numerically by value of skepticism. This number dictates how difficult it is to sway the bias of that juror. And you're going to see these tokens already pre-positioned here. Each one of these tokens represents a different bias. The top row is going to start a little towards the prosecution, and the bottom row is going to start a little bit towards the defense. So we do get kind of a starting point to start manipulating the emotions of these jurors.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because in this case we're using a side of these jurors that has a lock on the far left of the cards. This represents my ability as the prosecution to lock that juror. One of the win conditions for this case for the prosecution is to get all 12 jurors locked at any given time. I will automatically win the case if I do that. So Ryan's going to be struggling to keep them off those locked positions. On the flip side, he's going to have a hard time because when it's time to sway a jury with influence through witnesses, he's not able to unlock the jurors.
Yep.
He's only going to be able to do that with special powers on some of his cards. So you'll see a lot of this and how it works here in just a second. I think that's just about everything. A few more things that we want to cover off before we start the discovery is we each have 3 objection tokens. These objection tokens are going to be used throughout the game. You only get these 3 tokens for the whole game. Now, there may be some cards that refresh them, but you may not find those cards. You can also only use 1 objection per witness. So you can't sit there and defeat someone's card over and over. And that's exactly what these do. If Ryan plays any card, when the card is played, I can simply say, I object, flip one of these overs. He's going to discard that card, and then he has to take a different action. He can play another card, or he can do one of the other actions. We also have a sidebar token. Why don't you talk about the sidebar token?
Yeah, the sidebar token represents another action you can take. You can speak to the judge directly. What this is going to do, it's going to flip the judge back to your side and allow you to draw a card. Now, the sidebar token is only going to refresh when you lose a witness, or maybe you could play a card that has that as a special ability. But generally, you're only going to get to use that sidebar a few times during the game.
And finally, we have these little dials here. These are going to be used as we're adding influence up on either side of a witness, because some of the cards have some bonuses that you have to keep track of that won't be evident after the whole examination is over. So with that, we get to start the fun, although I don't know many lawyers would say this part is fun.
Yeah.
But this is the discovery, but it is an extraordinarily fun part of this game, because before any of the main meat of the game starts, there's a whole phase called discovery. We've got a case deck right here that represents examination cards and procedure cards, all sorts of things that can get added to our decks, as well as buried evidence. And we're going to go through a bit of a draft here to add those to our decks. Now, just like real discovery, this can be a longer process. It's not long when you're playing it, but for you to watch it, it might be a little long, so we're going to probably speed things up, and we'll show you some of the cards throughout. I'll maybe close my ears while Ryan shows you his, and etc. But we're going to be doing that right now. So the way discovery works is we're each going to take 3 cards simultaneously, and then what we do with those 3 cards is threefold. We're going to privately add one of them to our own deck, one of them to our opponent's deck, and then one of them into the buried evidence. Once we've both done that, we draw another 3 cards and do it until this entire deck is over. And then we're going to shuffle these up and really get into the game.
And it is worth noting that even though we do have a main deck of cards that's going to be carried from case to case, this deck here is specific to this case. So every piece of evidence that we're getting from this relates somehow to this murder trial. The game is going to come with multiple cases, so you're going to be using different case cards every time you play.
So let's start with the discovery. Now this part's going to be a little quiet, so like I said, we'll fast forward, but we'll stop from time to try to narrate. I've got a few different cards here, and I will tell you some of the things to consider here. In the upper left-hand corner of the card, like I mentioned, there's a primary influence value for these cards. These are going to be important in the influence calculation at the end of a witness. There is a defensive value, and I'll just show you right now here on this camera without showing Ryan, which is going to be a blue banner with a D. Then there's prosecution cards, and then there's neutral ones. Now, the prosecution ones are going to actually benefit me if I play them, but they'll be zeros for Ryan, as will the defensive cards if I play those. Neutral cards can be used for either of us, and they will add to our influence. Now, it's important to note that I can still play defensive cards, but that's only to match these icons across the top of the card. One thing we didn't mention, and we'll mention this a little bit more when we're examining the witness, this has a really cool mechanism where you have to match up these icons as you play sequential cards. Otherwise, you can't play any more cards.
Yep.
So, with that, we will start the discovery.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and pick some of these cards, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why I'm doing this. So first of all...
Should I close my ears, Ryan?
Yeah, you should close your ears and your eyes. So like I have this card here that I really like. It gives me a pretty good boost up here. It allows me to manipulate this icon, and I really want this icon because if you look at your strategy, it's going to tell you you're going to score points for these witnesses, so I'm going to want that. So I'm just going to put this one in my deck. Now for David... I have a card in my hand that's very difficult to pull off, and I don't think David's going to be able to pull it off.
So you're giving it to me?
It is a powerful card, but it has a very tricky ability down here. So I'm going to give it to David because I'm not sure that that card is going to be effective in the long run. And I also don't want him to have this card. So this one I'm going to bury.
What card is that, Ryan?
You
don't have to tell me. Oh, you know what? Go ahead. Go ahead. I know that it's in buried evidence.
I'll tell you, it's key evidence for the case, and I don't want it showing up in this case, so I'm going to bury it. Also, the icons up here are going to reflect some of the icons he has on his card. So part of that back and forth in controlling these witnesses is that you have to match these symbols. If he can't match the symbols he needs, he's going to be limited in how to score points.
Yeah, it's really interesting because this draft, you'll soon find there's a number of things you're wanting to consider. You cannot just look at that upper left-hand number. You have to look at the powers because sometimes you might have a weak number up there, but the power is significant. So I will also share about my cards. I've got some interesting cards here. This is going to be a tough call because they all have fairly decent values.
Good. So I get a good card no matter what.
But I'm going to show you something interesting. One of them is a prosecution card, and it has a fairly decent power, but I'm going to give that to Ryan because it's a 0 for him.
Oh, I see.
And then these last two I have, I'm going to show you this one right here. I am not showing Ryan this for sure. It is absolute key evidence to counter some of my evidence, so I'm going to put that into
you're going to bury it. You're not going to use it as prosecution.
No, unfortunately, I'm not because it is a defense card. And I'm going to take this one. It's a neutral card, but it is also a high-value card. And it has a decent power, too, so I'm going to add that to my deck. So we're going to go through the rest of the discovery. We might pause at a certain point to do that again, just to share with you a little bit about the cards we're taking. But for now, we're just going to move on through it. Yeah, so we're about, halfway through the discovery. We've traded a lot of cards. We've gotten rid of a lot of cards. There's been some snickering at the table with some of the cards we've given to each other and gotten rid of. Wanted to show you some of what I'm doing on my turn right now because there's an interesting card here. I'm going to be definitely keeping this card right here. And hopefully Ryan doesn't see this, but one specific thing, it's a neutral card. I'll give a little bit away. But the key here is it is an evidence card, but it has all of the icons across the top.
Ooh, that sounds juicy.
Usually that's only procedure cards that do that. So I'm actually able to play this, get some influence power into my examination, and be able to use it to link to other cards. Ryan will find that this is a tricky game to link all your cards. Sometimes you will not be able to play all the cards in your hand during a given round. So I'm going to keep that one. I'm actually going to give this one to Ryan because I'll just let you know, it's of little use to you.
Wow, thank you.
And then I'm going to bury this one because this one is more than a little use to you.
Well, let me talk about mine then because I'm going to give you this card. If you look at this card, its effect helps both players. So even no matter who plays it, it's going to help me.
Interesting.
And I don't think there's any way David's going to be able to score the victory condition of the card. So I'm just going to give it to him in that, with that critique. So I'm going to keep this one because I really like this ability. I will mention that there are generically not a lot of ways for me to unlock biases once they become locked. So any card that's going to help me do that, I probably want to keep. So that's why. And then my last card, it's a good card, but it's just getting buried.
All right, so we're going to finish the discovery out, and then we'll be ready to call the first witness.
Yeah.
So we are done with discovery now, and we'll spare you our opening statements. We can tell you they were glorious. I mean, mine was anyway. Yeah. I'm not so sure about Ryan's.
Yours was 20 minutes long.
I know. It took a while. Brian fell asleep on me. But now it is time to actually start the meat of the game. We've drawn our cards. As you remember, I'm starting with a 6th card in my hand, which is the bloody knife, and then I have 5 other cards. Ryan's drawn 5. I am the prosecution, so I'm going to kick things off by calling the first witness, and then we'll explain a little bit as we play each card, just so you understand how this is going. One thing I'll tell you right now, it's important. You can't just randomly call these witnesses. Now, we've organized these, not necessarily something everyone has to do, but these are mostly the defensive witnesses that were on his defensive strategy. These are my prosecution witnesses. So they're going to have some cards a little bit more in common probably with the cards in your hand. And that's because these icons down the side are vital to playing the cards. With that said, I'm going to call my first witness, which is Madi Ganon. We're going to put him right there so you can see it. And we're going to play on either side of him. When you draw a witness, you are going to turn the upper left-hand primary number toward you. So he's going to be flipped upside down effectively right now because I get this neutral 3, giving Ryan this prosecution 2, which is a 0 for him. And I've got these icons to play with.
Now what is his importance to the case?
Yeah, so I'll tell you really quick. When you call Madi, your opponent discards all material evidence from their hand. So anything that's labeled material evidence is discarded. Did I hit anything?
I have nothing that's labeled material evidence.
Well, and that's just sort of luck of the draw.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be some times throughout the game where you know someone's pulled something back from their discard pile and you could maybe get rid of it. And that's not always going to happen. So that is not going to have an effect. But then the victory, whoever wins this is going to draw one material evidence card from either player's discard pile.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a very interesting effect. Now, we don't have discard piles, but there may be cards that I play right now that will go in my discard pile. So I'm going to kick things off and play phone records. These phone records, I'm not sure who is on the phone, Ryan.
Yeah.
But let's just put it this way. It wasn't good for Jessica.
Is that right?
No, I'm putting this forward as my first piece of evidence. As you can see, I have these two icons right here, these bias icons. In fact, I have all three matching up. And now I have the 3 neutral influence plus the 2.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add this on my dial. I currently have a 5 influence. And these dials just make it a little easier for the other player to see.
Now, on my turn, instead of playing a evidence card or a card on the argument, I'm going to play out a procedure. This procedure is called new evidence. Now, I don't get to use this procedure right now. I just get to put it in place, kind of almost like as a trap for later. When the timing is right, I can activate this procedure.
Yeah, that's a good point. We didn't talk about very specifically the things you could do on your turn. One of those is to play a card into the examination. One of them is to play a procedure like Ryan just mentioned. Another is to use a procedure, and that's any of the procedure cards that you've been able to play. And then finally, you can actually call a sidebar by flipping your sidebar token over, taking the judge's favor, if you will, by flipping this card, and then drawing another card, which drawing another card can be vital in this game because you'll see if you don't have the icons across the top of your card, sometimes you get the perfect card to link things up and play a much better examination. So with that, what is that procedure, by the way? What do I have to worry about?
So if I can only use this procedure if the judge is favorable to me, but I get to look through the buried evidence and return any buried evidence to my hand.
Just one buried evidence?
Just one buried evidence.
Oh, so you might be looking for that other knife.
I might be, but the judge is then going to return to your favor. So.
Right. And this is a reason why it's on my favor right now, so he needs to curry favor with the judge.
I do.
I could foil that by then currying favor with the judge, and then you wouldn't still be able to play that card.
But if I win this witness, or if I lose the witness, I get the favor of the judge.
That's true.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I might lose this witness.
All right, so next up, I'm going to play some pretty clear evidence.
Oh.
You know why I know that? Because it says clear evidence right there. Again, these match the icons. It's going to add 2 to my influence value. And then it says examination. You may play an evidence from your hand ignoring bias.
Oh, nice.
So I'm going to add the 2. So I now have a 7 influence. And I'm going to go ahead and play a card from my hand ignoring the bias, which means I don't have to match up the icons.
Yeah.
So as you can see, these 2 icons don't match any of the icons on the card previous to it, but that last card allows me to play it. This one also has an examination value. It says +2 value for each thumbs up card in your examination. Unfortunately, this is the only card like that, so I will only get 2 more.
So you get 9.
But I'm up to 9,
to
and
my 0.
You're at 0 right now. So
fine.
I'm feeling good about my first
fine.
witness.
I'm going to bring out. So there was a stolen pocket watch. It was.
I disagree.
It was found in a pawn shop. How did that get there? So, however, this is going to allow me to draw 1 card during the examination. So I'm going to draw 1 into my hand.
Yeah, the card draw can be important because oftentimes you'll get that card and it's just perfect. Now, I will remind everyone watching, and I hesitate to remind Ryan, we do have those objection tokens.
We definitely do.
So at any time when someone plays a card, you can object, and it can really foil their plans. For instance, if Ryan plays a card that is just a linking card that links to the next card, and I object, it might destroy the rest of his hand.
It might. My case would be ruined.
All right. With that said, it's my turn, and I am going to play... I'm going to play new evidence. Unfortunately, this doesn't add anything to my examination. It is just a linking card. The power doesn't even fire off. So I'm still at a 9 for my influence.
Okay.
You gonna let that procedure card just float over
I
there?
am going to let that procedure card float over there for right now. I'm going to actually play this procedure inadmissible right here so that I can match the icon, and it's going to allow me to play a better card next turn because I'll have all the icons, similar to what you did.
Nice. You know, I'm sure both of us are tempted to object, but again, you can only object once per witness, and Ryan knows that I have that bloody knife in my hand.
I do know that.
I may or may not play it. And you also only have 3 for the whole game.
That's
so if you
true.
burn through those, you might find yourself late in the case hurting.
You can almost, like as a ploy, try to get me to burn these by playing maybe a card that looks really appealing but isn't really key to your case.
Funny you should say that. I'm not quite there yet, but I am going to play. I'm going to make an impassioned plea in the courtroom. By the way, I have to mention the artwork on these cards is really cool. They have specific art to a lot of these thematic elements, and all the different cases are going to have different art, I believe, from different artists. So the impassioned plea gives me a +3. It matches since the last card I had was a procedure card. So +3 is going to give me a total of 12 influence. Now this one has just a victory condition, so if it ends up being the last card I play, we will resolve the victory effect of another card in my examination, if there is one.
Okay. I'm going to lead with clear evidence.
Oh.
Yeah, I have a clear evidence card as well.
You have clear evidence too.
This is clearly not guilty, and that's evidence of the case. So I'm going to add 2. Now, I'm only at 3. Now, you might say to yourself, like, oh, well, he's obviously winning. I should just let it go. But the more he wins, the more jurors he's going to be able to sway. So I want to at least get my number close to David's, even if I lose.
And what's the examination power on that?
Oh, I may play an evidence card from my hand, ignoring bias.
Oh, it's that same card.
I think I will do that. I'm going to play secret payments.
All these things sound so awful.
There was some, I told you.
I'm not sure who to believe, and I'm the prosecution.
I said at the beginning of the case there was some shady stuff happening. So this is going to give me 5. It also says, you choose any one of these witnesses. We will remove them from the game and replace it from the top with the top witness.
So now I will point out it cannot be Jessica herself.
Right.
We just put her there in the witness pool so that you could see it.
Right. She's not technically a witness.
So I get to do that?
Your opponent replaces any available witness with the top card of the witness deck.
Boy, oh boy. I think I will get rid of Diana Lawrence.
Okay.
And then we will replace her.
Yeah, Lawrence, yep.
With Zelda Torrenson, which looks to be another defensive witness.
All right,
so that's
good for me.
For you. You lucked out. That's your turn?
That's my turn.
All right, my friend. I'm gonna do it. I'm going to play the bloody knife. It matches up with the heart. It is my last card. It's going to add 5.
Objection.
Objection.
Circumstantial evidence that was tampered with. I don't believe that they moved it before the CSI even got there.
I can tell you
I have to object that.
You're a good gamer, but I'm not sure you'd make a great lawyer. I don't understand any of what you just said, but according to the rules of the game, I do have to discard it. So I discard it, and now it's still my turn. I get to take an action. I didn't take the points associated with it. This really stinks.
It's not a great position for you to be in.
But I am going to, you know what? I think I'm going to, I can pass. I can sidebar, but sidebar is only going to put a card in my hand, which is kind of pointless at this time, unless I could play it. I'm going to just pass, because I have got a lot of influence, and we'll see what you can do. You only have 1 card left.
For now.
Uh-oh.
All right, so you're passed. So
I'm passed.
When one side passes, the other side is free to just take out their actions as they wish.
Yes.
So the first thing I'm going to do is sidebar. I need that judge to be on my side. This also lets me draw a card, so that could be helpful. It wasn't super helpful.
By the way, if you're ever a lawyer in a courtroom, don't say out loud, that's not super helpful.
So, but I can then use this procedure that I set aside. Because the judge is agreeable to me, I can search the buried evidence for any card and add it to my hand. So this is going to go to my discard pile.
So we'll give Ryan the buried evidence. Can I just randomly give you one, or do you?
No,
really
I do want to choose one.
So again, as Ryan searches through there, I'm not sure what he's going to take. because as you look through there, it's almost like you're doing the draft all over again. He's going to take one of those cards, and you add it to your hand. Does it say draw?
I add it to my hand right now.
Adds it to his hand. So not only is he getting a great card, he's able to look through there and get maybe the perfect card to continue letting him play some of the cards out of his hand.
That's what I'm trying to do.
So there may be a procedure card in there that's a good linker, but I'm guessing he's going to be looking at those icons across the top of the card first and foremost. What do you see?
I'm looking at the icons across the top, just like you said. And I was really hoping I would get one that was for defense, but I'm really not seeing it. Now, if we don't play all the cards in our hand, they carry over to the next round?
They can carry over. At the end of any given round, you're able to, when everything's done, during the cleanup, you're going to be given the chance to discard any number of cards out of your hand, and then you're drawing back up to a hand size of 5.
All right. I don't think I'm going to get you here, but I will.
Another thing you might not want to say in a courtroom. I don't think we're going to win.
I don't think I'm going to win this case.
Was that part of your opening statement?
That was. It's like, guys, this is bad.
You, folks, I don't think we're going to win.
But I'm also looking at the abilities, right? Because these abilities are key as well. And unfortunately, there isn't anything in here that's really going to help me. So I'm going to take...
you don't have to announce it.
I don't have to announce it,
but
do I?
You could show it to the camera just so everyone can see. And I'll point out, too, there's not a lot of cards that let you do this. So even though Ryan's taking longer than the discovery to choose one here.
There's a lot of cards here.
It's fun to look through a whole deck of cards and then decide, okay, which one do I want?
All right, so here's what I'm going to do.
So that was that action.
Because I actually really want to win this witness. So I'm going to play the medical records, which does nothing for me, actually, other than line up these links. I'm going to play Point of Law. Now, this actually links up. It gives me 3 on my defense.
So what are you up to?
I'm at 11 currently.
Uh-oh.
And you're at 12?
I'm at 12. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
And you had the 2 bonus ones.
And I had 2 bonus, yeah.
And yeah, so this neutral 5 really helped me out. So this says draw 1 procedure from your discard. So I have 1 procedure in my discard. I'll return it to my hand. I'll play it so that I can link my icons.
That was a beautiful...
And this is going to give me 2 more.
Hats off to you.
Yeah,
What's that do on the examination?
Well, it lets me claim one of your opponent's claimed witnesses, but you don't have any.
Yeah, so that power is kind of burnt.
That's fine.
But that was a really great move to sort of tilt the favor in your
Correct.
direction.
I laid out a lot of evidence here.
So he's passed, I've passed. Now the only thing to do is to take a look at the witness to determine who won it. Now we've already done this effectively. I have 12 to Ryan's 13. So Ryan is going to win the witness. Now, there's some things we do before he tries to sway the jurors. The first thing is I'm going to take a look at my card to see if there's any lose conditions.
Yep.
There is not. I look at the witness. Are there any lose conditions? There are not. Now you're going to look, are there any win conditions on your last card?
Yeah, claim one of your opponent's claimed witnesses, which we already talked about. You don't have any, so that was unfortunate.
Here, victory, draw 1 material evidence from either player's discard.
Is that a material evidence?
Yes.
Then I will be taking that.
Oh, that's a killer.
The bloody knife was certainly a killer.
Yeah, I took a chance on the bloody knife. I didn't anticipate that card coming out because I had a little longer term strategy where I was going to be able to get that bloody knife back into my hand.
That would have been a great strategy if if it didn't happen to be a material.
That's exactly what I was hoping to do, because if I'd have won this, I would have been able to pull that right back into my hand, effectively burning one of your objectives.
I had a little surprise in there.
Yes, you did.
You did. It's a little twisty.
So, like we said, we've resolved those conditions. He's going to take the witness into his claimed witnesses, and that's going to give you, does that give you any of the icons you need?
It doesn't.
So it doesn't give him any of the icons for his closing statements. Then all of my cards are going to go into my discard, his into his discard. Then we compare these values. Yep. He had 13, I had 12. That means he has 1 influence because he's going to get the difference, and he's going to use that to sway a juror. Now, when you sway a juror in this fashion and no other fashion, you have to take into account their skepticism. So you only have a 1. So you're not going to make any move with any of the 2s through 6s.
Right.
You're only going to be able to sway one of these guys 1 space.
Let's just sway this one away from being locked. And this would have flipped back to you after I used my procedure, but it would still go to you anyway because you lost the witness.
Right, and this is one of those moments where I was reconsidering. I should have probably used this to draw another card.
And hoped it matched up?
And hoped it matched up, because worst case is if I did lose, it would have flipped back over.
Oh, it would have flipped over. That's correct. So,
but that's
mine
all right.
does not flip over because I won. So you're going to have a whole another sidebar here.
Yes. So now we draw up to our hand size, but you can discard some cards if you want.
I'm not going to discard this.
I don't have any to discard, so I'm going to take my 5 cards. And I'm still calling the witness because I lost the last one. Okay, not a bad hand.
No?
I'm drawing some good power anyway. And you'll find, Ryan, we both had an extraordinary first hand. The fact that I was able to play all of my cards, 6 cards. You played how many cards? 7?
I played 7, I believe.
A number of cards. Sometimes...
I played 8 cards because of all the card drawing I had in there.
Sometimes you just can't link them. It becomes very, very difficult.
Yes.
So when you see those procedure cards in your hand, you're like, do I want to use that to link, or do I want that power to play it as a procedure? All right, let me take a quick look at the cards here to see if there's any interesting effects. Some of the effects you should know name specific witnesses. So you want to take note and call those witnesses when you have those cards in your hand, because they usually have a very unique and flavorful power when played. I am going to call, let's see, I'm going to call Dorothy Banner.
Okay.
The prosecution calls Dorothy Banner to the stand.
What was Dorothy's role in all this?
Dorothy, the Fairmont family lawyer, that's who Dorothy is.
Okay.
She claims that the defendant made several recent inquiries to her father's will and her share of it should he die.
Look, he was elderly already, so there was definitely some will questions happening regardless.
I'm just going to say right now, even if I lose this game, Jessica's guilty.
Oh, is that right?
I'm just a bad lawyer, I think.
Can you prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt?
We'll see. So, Dorothy Banner, when called, you lock or unlock one of the justice symbol biases. So I'm going to place this right there. I'm going to go ahead and lock this justice symbol. Now, note that you don't have to worry about the skepticism here. You're just simply locking it. Now, when you do lock it, it has to be one space away from the lock, and I was just lucky enough to do that. This one couldn't have been moved because I would be swaying it otherwise. The other one is prosecution victory. So this is only if I win. Sway or lock 2 of the little logic icons, the little head with the brain in them. So that's another opportunity I have to potentially lock that one right up.
Interesting, okay.
And it gives me an initial value of 2 and Orion an initial value of 0.
Again.
So I'm going to go ahead and put that 2 on my dial. And then I am going to play a card. Let's see, what order do I want to play these cards?
I'm going to start with about this.
Yeah, well, I had some. It becomes tricky because there's a sequence of cards that you have in your hand. And you're thinking, okay, I'll play them like that, and then you look down and you see that the icon doesn't match up, and then you've got to also be careful because even though this is a prosecution card, its power is such that I would only want to play it when you've called a witness, or if it's a defensive witness, because otherwise it's not good for me to play.
Well, let's see what it does.
I'm not playing that.
Oh, you're not playing it?
No. I am playing this one right here. Security system logs. Records show that Jessica inexorably, wow, that's some words, inexorably, disarmed the security system before leaving the house that morning, including the cameras. You have to agree. I mean, come on.
There's a lot of reasons one might do that.
Come on. You do
There's
that?
a lot of reasons.
Do you have a security system?
I do. Sometimes I just deactivate it for fun.
Oh, okay. Note to everyone out there wanting to rob Ryan's house.
What is the ability though of this one?
Examination. Well, it's going to give me 3, so that's going to take me up to 5 immediately on my influence. Examination. Resolve the examination effect on one of your claimed witnesses. I don't have any claimed witnesses, so again, this is a burnt
There's
power.
no reason for me to object to that then.
And you will be burning powers for sure because it's really important to play these cards with the right sequence.
I see that. So I'm just going to start off slow. I'm just going to play this lipstick smeared glass. It doesn't really help me, but it does set me up with some icons. And I'm still at 0 because those were both prosecution cards.
Trying to think if I can actually play this card that I thought I shouldn't. Nah. No, thank you. Okay, I'm going to do something weird here. I'm playing Co-Counsel. It's typically a procedure card, but I'm playing it to link. So the action does nothing. It would have been a decent action because it was going to allow me to refresh my sidebar and draw a card from the examination. But
you know what? I'm going to object that.
Oh, really?
I'm going to object, leading the witness.
You are a giant jerk. And I'd say that in court, sir.
I'm hoping that messes with your plans.
This is one of those moments where I want to object to your objection.
Can't object to an objection.
No, unfortunately, you cannot.
All right. And I'm going to lead in with a drunken recording. Again, doesn't give me any points, but does let me sway one of these thumbs.
I'm going to actually object.
You're going to object to the drunken recording?
Yep. Even though it gives you 1, I don't want you swaying anything, so objection.
Well, we won't. Does it go to my discard pile then? Yeah.
It does go to your discard pile, and you get to...
All right.
You know what? I forgot. I should have played after you objected.
Oh, you should have played another card, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead. Before you do that, I'm going to safely play this, which is another procedure card.
Oh, so you were going to be upset anyway.
Since you've already objected, you can't object to it.
That's
but
correct.
I am objecting to that.
You're objecting this, which means I play again.
Yes.
I don't think...
We were clearly, should I say it?
What?
Out of
order. Unfortunately, there's no way I can win this, so there's no reason for me to play really any of these cards.
And that's absolutely a valid strategy, because you might have cards in your hand that are really great, but if you can't play them and you don't think you're going to win and it's not really going to stack up, you might cut your losses and wait for the next witness.
That's exactly what I think is going to happen here. Plus, I'm out of everything.
Yeah,
so
you can't object, and there's no sidebar.
If I could sidebar right now, I would. But when I lose this, which I inevitably will, I'll get to refresh that sidebar.
Right.
Because I'm at a whopping 0 here. So
you're passing?
I'm actually just passing. I'm going to say the defense rests their case here on this.
Well, the prosecution is not resting, sir.
You are winning already.
I am winning.
Well, you want to win better.
But I want to win better because when someone passes, you have to know if someone can play a ton of cards, it just gives them more influence to spend. I know.
You're going to get a lot of influence
I'm
here.
I'm trying to determine how much I'm going to get and whether it's worthwhile playing them. I am going to... Yeah, I'm not playing this one for sure. But I'm going to play driving home the point.
Ooh, uh-oh.
Even though you've passed, I'm going to still drive home this point. This is going to give me 3.
Right.
So now I'm up to 8. And then it has a victory condition if it's my last card play, and we'll get into that
which it was
in a second.
So
I'm going to now pass.
Yep.
So now we're going to take a look at this witness and resolve them. I have 8, but we're going to resolve this victory condition. Is there a loss condition here?
There is not.
And no loss condition here. So the victory condition here is +2 influence for each other card in your examination. So I get another 4.
Ooh. It's a lot of influence.
Takes me up to 12 influence. And then the victory condition here again, prosecution victory, sway or lock 2 of the logic ones.
The logic ones?
I can't do either of these because...
You could sway them.
I am going... Or lock?
Sway or lock.
Oh, definitely locking this one.
And then you could sway the other one. Sway or lock 2.
Oh.
Look at that.
She's powerful.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dorothy. I'm going to claim that witness, put it right over here, discard these cards, discard your card.
Yeah, well, that was the round.
And how much influence did you end up having?
0.
Oh, you had 0.
And I couldn't really give you any more than that.
So we'll show you how this works. I have 12 to spend, which is a little more than Ryan had. I'm going to spend 6 of it to go ahead and lock this guy right here. So I'm down to 6. And then I'm going to spend, let's see. I'll spend 5 of it to lock this guy.
Yep.
And 1 of it to sway this guy.
Yeah, that's not great for me.
So you see how it works. As the prosecution, I'm slowly trying to lock some of these, and it behooves me to lock these guys because it's going to cost a lot more influence. Not to mention, you have to have find cards to unlock these guys.
That's correct.
So there's going to be a lot more action down here with these guys with less skepticism and a little less action with these guys.
Yeah, that was not great for me.
So those are just the first two witnesses. Now, the game is going to end in one of two ways, and it depends on the case that you play. In this case, if, I mentioned earlier, the prosecution is able to lock all 12 jurors at any given time, open and shut case, as they say. The prosecution's going to win. Otherwise, it's going to go to how typical cases are going to be resolved. We're going to end after 9 witnesses. That could include her, it might not, but after 9 witnesses have been claimed, we're going to take a look at things. We're going to having closing arguments, and the way the closing arguments work is really interesting. We'll go into more detail about that when we're sitting down on the couches discussing who ended up winning. But we're going to compare all of the influence from our claimed witnesses by looking at the icons and seeing if they match up our strategy. We're going to get 3 points for each icon on every one of those witnesses that we've claimed. Compare those values, and whoever has more is going to be able to spend the difference one last time to sort of sway the jurors, noting that you still can't unlock any of the jurors.
That's
so
true.
It could be tricky for you if it comes to that. So we're going to finish up and get through this. Hopefully it will be an open and shut case. Don't you agree?
Yeah, for me. Clearly.
And then join us on the couches when we tell you about the entire case. All right, well, that is it. We're going to tell you the results of the case here right now, and I'm stalling just like someone would in a courtroom, I suppose, because the defense won.
Yeah, not guilty.
Well, the defense won anyway.
Oh.
I still think Jessica was guilty, but Ryan won the game.
I did.
And I got to tell you, I've played this game a few times now. This one was a nail biter.
I was biting my nails.
I mean, you thought you lost for sure in
the
last round or two, the last couple of witnesses.
The last round, I really thought I won. And you see why I thought I won.
Yeah.
Or lost, because it was very, very close.
Yeah, it was very close. It came down. It clearly wasn't an open and shut case. I was never able to lock all of them. There was a point early on after we stopped filming the gameplay where I'd locked quite a few.
Yeah.
And the moment I did that, Ryan's initial reaction was like, oh, well, this is going to be hard.
Yeah.
Because I had finally gotten that bloody knife into play one time. So let us tell you a little bit about what happened with the bloody knife.
That was rough.
So you saw the bloody knife played right initially, and I thought, like I'd said, my strategy was to get that back into my hand because there was a witness that allowed me to do that. But Ryan's play on that first witness allowed him to take the bloody knife. Well, he could play it too, although it didn't give him points. He was trying to get it into play to get that 15 influence if it was your last card played. You never were able to do that, right?
No, every time you found a way to block it. I tried twice.
There was a point at which we were each able to draw a card from each other's discard piles, and I got it back. Then I used it, and he objected to it, but that was your last objection, I think. So I lured him out, knowing that one witness that I'd thought of early in the game was still out there, so I could call him, get the bloody knife back into my hand, and there was nothing Ryan could do about it as long as I could link to it and win the witness.
And you did. I think you got something like almost 33 influence points that...
I think I got
something.
I got a lot of influence points that time. Yeah, it was quite a bit. So I was able to shift a ton of this, or sway a lot of the jurors with that.
Yeah, I'll say it's very easy to shift things in your balance, but when it looked like you had overwhelmingly beat me, that's when I called Jessica to the stand.
Yeah.
And as soon as she comes into the stand, she unlocks 3 things. So I was able to unlock 3 of the higher ones that David had worked to lock. Once that was done, I could actually start moving them again. So that kind of actually, even though I lost that witness, you won her.
Yeah.
It still helped me.
And what was interesting, when you call Jessica, he gets to unlock things, but I was allowed to claim any of the unclaimed witnesses at that point, at which point I took one of your defensive witnesses that happened to have my 2 icons that I was looking for with my strategy as well, so knowing that in closing statements that was going to benefit me all the more.
Yeah, and I think something I noticed after playing, of course, is that the icons on the cards heavily favor the prosecution, but you need that influence because you have a lot more work to do. Because at the end of the game, if even one juror is still on the defendant side, the defense wins.
Yeah, we didn't mention that right off the top. If it does come down to closing statements with the jurors, just like real courtroom, it's beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yep.
So I had to prove my case, so all the jurors had to be on my side. And this was crazy. How much influence did I have at the end? I had a lot to
You
spend.
had a lot to spend, that's for sure.
I had a fair amount to
33. It was 11. You
yeah,
had
but
11.
minus your 15 or something.
Yeah,
so
minus
I had,
my 15.
So I was spending some points, a lot of influence after closing statements, and I was able to move a lot of them onto my side, all the way down to the one last juror who wasn't on my side, and he had a level 2 skepticism, and at that point, I only had 1 point of influence. So I wasn't able to move him just to the other side. And what's interesting is I'd kind of made a mistake maybe a round before that.
Yeah, just on that last
that
round.
very round.
Yeah.
There was a card I'd played that allowed me to sway a juror. And because earlier in the game, you're in as the prosecutor, you're in the mindset of wanting to lock as many as you can. But later in the game, if you feel like it's not going to be an open and shut case like that and you're going to closing statements, you're better off not swaying one of the high value ones like that if it's on your side already. I had one on my side already and I locked it instead of moving a different one, which would have won me the game.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I made some mistakes too.
Yes.
It's very easy to look at your hand and lay out your cards and think, I want to play them in this order. And then when it came down to it, I played from the back and I played backwards and then realized, oh shoot, I played my icons in the wrong order. I couldn't trigger the things I needed to trigger.
Yeah,
So,
the game is quite thinky. I mean, for
sure.
a two-player game, there's a lot of thinking going on when you're doing that discovery, which is the draft, and you're looking at all those cards. As you saw during the game, there's a point at which Ryan, and myself too, when you're looking through the discard pile or you're looking through the buried evidence, you want to go over every single aspect of those cards because you want to make a good decision. But even like what Ryan was just saying, the sequencing of the cards and the order in which you play them, even when you know what you're doing, you can make minor little mistakes. You can make huge mistakes where you play them completely out of order. But you find yourself sorting the cards in your hand. Okay, I think I've got it all figured out. They come into that. And then all of a sudden someone plays a card where you randomly lose a card out of your hand or something, and someone pulls that card right out of the middle of that sequence. But on the flip side, you might draw a card and pull a procedure card that lets you link a bunch of stuff.
Or you might object to the key card, and that messes up your whole sequence as well.
Yeah, those objections are interesting. And we found out that that is a game of chicken.
For sure.
So someone has their objections, and they're going to object, but it's up to you, the other side, to sort of lure those out and pull them. I felt really satisfied with doing your last objection with that knife, knowing that I was going to get it back.
I had to do it, though.
But it didn't end up working out for me, right?
I used, I think 2 of my 3 objectives were on that knife.
Yeah.
And at least one of yours was to object it when I played it.
Yeah, well, when you're playing in that case, as the defense, you got to think, okay, I've got to look for that knife with the objections. And we didn't go into the buried evidence too much. You pulled one card out of there.
I did pull a card out of the buried evidence at one point, yeah.
And then we each played a cool card that allowed us to pull 3 cards randomly and then divvy them up just like we did during Discovery. I did that once and you did that once.
Well, I took your card from your discard pile and played it again.
That's right. That's right.
And one thing, is like our numbers at the end of the game were pretty high because we had a lot of witnesses out, and that's something to note. Normally, sometimes there's only 9 witnesses, but this case, I did call Jessica, so that was the 10th witness. And we played 3 surprise witness cards over the course of the game. Sometimes you're not going to play a single one.
No, the surprise witness card might not come out like that. It's a procedure. Someone might object to that.
Yeah, right.
We either didn't. You didn't on my first because I think you were waiting for my knife.
I was.
And then by the time it came out again on your side, I was out of objections. And then he actually was able to somehow, in fact, it was in the very last round of the game, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
I played a card that let him randomly draw a card out of his discard pile, and it was the surprise witness again. What the surprise witness does, just so you know, when you play it, it's a procedure, and then when you activate it, it allows you to immediately claim the witness that's being fought over, and then you replace that witness with the top card out of the unused witness deck.
And you drew that card out of my discard pile too, so you can't even blame me.
I gave it to him. I randomly pulled it out for him.
Unfortunately, the witness that came out was a strong prosecution witness.
Yes,
so
that's kind of the rub there. You don't know what you're going to get because it's a little bit of a surprise for you too. But like Ryan said, we ended up with 13 witnesses claimed. So in closing statements, I did really clobber Ryan with
Oh, you
closing
did, for
statements,
sure.
but it just wasn't quite enough to sway the jury.
Well, and I think you have to, because the burden to get every juror onto your side
It's rough.
is rough. So you really need to have more jurors. Like, you need to clobber them in closing statements, or you don't really have a shot at winning.
Yeah, and we even got to the point where we were really low on cards too.
Oh, I only have one card left in my deck.
And you're not redrawing. I had just one card in my deck too, and you do not redraw. So if you find yourself cycling through your deck and there are still witnesses to call, you're passing effectively. So you definitely need to pace yourself and be careful about that. So anyway, that's what happened in this murder case. I still say Jessica is guilty, but I have to
The world will never know.
abide by the rule of the court. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions at all about the game, put them below. We'll try to answer them. We'll probably try to have the guys from Rock Manor answer them. And if you're interested in the Kickstarter, definitely check that out. This is a really, really thinky, interesting two-player game, and the theme of the court really comes through.
Yeah, it
a
really
lot.
does.
So we will see you next time.